Hey guys, welcome into the Starcastic Mark Studios. My name is Ryan, and you are listening/watching a special edition of the Starcastic Marks. This is the 2022 NHL Playoffs first round predictions video. We're going to go ahead and go through each of the three of us, you guys. Let me just pull y'all up real quick while we do this. I don't have the fancy little graphics around us because we have to do the other one so that we can actually see, everyone can see our picks as we're going. But what we're going to do is we're going to make our first round selections, and then we'll make our second round selections, and then we'll decide who wins the conference. As James is snacking on, what is that, pizza?
It's pizza, man.
Of course it's pizza. And then
I made it with 20 seconds left on the countdown, guys. So.
Not even in the green room.
No. Right, not even in the green room. You just made it in. We didn't even get to say hi to him or anything like that. So, anyways, you guys, we're gonna go ahead and get straight into this. So let's go ahead and pull this up because we got a lot to talk about. But here's the NHL bracket challenge. I figured what we'd go ahead and do is just do it one at a time per person, and we'll just go through this and we'll see who each of us thinks is gonna win each of these series. So. Who would like to go first, or do y'all want me to go first? What do y'all think?
You go first, Ryan.
Me first. Okay. So I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna start real easy here. I'm gonna start over here with Colorado versus Nashville. I think this is gonna be well. The way the bracket challenge works on here actually is you have to pick the team and then you get to say how many games. So obviously I'm gonna go with Colorado. I feel like that's the easiest matchup to predict. UC Saros, if he had been healthy, I think they might have had a chance if UC Saros was healthy. But according to reports, it looks like that UC Saros is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So even if they beat Colorado, they won't even play. He won't even play in the next round, and then they would have to play Minnesota or St. Louis. So I don't think they have a chance in the world. For me, Colorado is going to win that series. The next, go ahead.
Hold on, we're gonna talk about that series. We're gonna go series by series, game by game.
We gotta go person by person.
All right.
First.
No, not person by person. Terrible idea. James agrees with me, right, James?
I like going game by game more.
There you go. James agrees with me. Oh. I agree with you, Ryan. I think that this is the most likely game to end in a sweep. Saros being injured is just horrible news for Nashville. I don't know if we've got an update if he's going to play yet. I'm sure they don't want to tell anybody. But even if he does play, you got to imagine he's not 100%. So I think they would have a chance otherwise, but without their best player, honestly, they're not going to have a chance against Colorado. This is the only series I put as a sweep in the first round. Nope. 1 of 2.
Oh, you got 2 sweeps? Wow.
2 sweeps in the first round.
Well, okay, well, and then anyways, for me, I just went straight into the next series. This one is going to be really hard to decide.
I didn't even get to say mine on Nashville, Colorado.
I forgot we're doing it. Y'all completely switched it up on me, so we're doing it y'all's way.
Fine. Your way was
much
done,
better this.
James, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
The Predators are going to lose. There's no question about it. You know they have 2 other choices to put in net. They have David Riddick, who has played 17 games for them with 9 wins, 3 losses, 4 overtime losses, and has a glorious save percentage this year of a .886.
Oh.
That's bad.
Yeah,
that's a lot of wins actually for having an .886.
Right, or they can play Connor Ingram, who has played 3 games this season. He won 1, lost 2, has a goals against average in those 3 games of a 3.71 and a save percentage of an .879.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say Ingram's not going to see the net at all, no matter what.
Yeah,
unless there's like a meltdown in game 1. Yeah,
even then.
I mean, they both have like the same save percentage, so I mean,
true.
Throw whoever you want, but I went with Colorado in 5. I think Nashville probably sneaks one off of them.
And that's a good series to start with, too. It's going to show you how important we're all going to view goaltending in this because we know goaltending can win you an entire Stanley Cup. That's pretty much happened with our run with Dobie. He had the best 2 months of his career in our stretch right then, and that's what pushed us there, honestly.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Chris, because after I spent a lot of time going through this, and other than my whole philosophy of they need to learn how to lose before they can win, I've also kind of gone back and decided that some of the picks I made earlier in the week were kind of stupid, and we'll talk about those as we go. But all right, so anyway, I did say Colorado in 4. That was one of my sweeps that I said. So I agree with Chris in that I think it will be a sweep. In the next series we got in the Western Conference, we have Minnesota and St. Louis. So this one's really interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm. And specifically the way I want to look at this is I want to look at this in different ways. Okay. So both teams are really very evenly matched. I mean, you could argue either way as to why, that team that you picked to win the series could win the series, because it could go either way. I mean, the goals per game are very, very good. 3.72 for Minnesota, 3.77 for St. Louis. Goals against, 3.06 for Minnesota, 2.86 for St. Louis. And then the only thing that I think could be a really big difference in this series is the special teams. And you can see it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube here. It's a 21% on the power play for Minnesota, 26.5 for St. Louis. So that's quite a big difference. And then their penalty kill percentage is very different as well. I mean, 75.8 for Minnesota and 84.4 for St. Louis. So if you look at this based off of the different categories of a team, when it comes to special teams, obviously St. Louis has that on this.
Absolutely does, yeah.
So they absolutely 100% do. And there's no doubt that they have the upper hand in that category. When you look at offense, I would honestly give it with a slight edge to St. Louis. And here's my reasoning for it, and I know it's only 0.05, and you're like, how can you make sense of that? When you look at the amount of guys that have over 20 goals for the St. Louis Blues, it is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, they have over 8 guys who have scored 20 goals or more. I mean, talk about a balanced lineup. I mean, they don't have like 3 guys that have scored 40 goals like the Stars have. They have 3 lines that can consistently score. And like if one of those guys goes down, it's all right. You got 7 more. So
I love that point, Ryan. That's a really good point, especially for playoffs when, like, if you have one guy, the other team's goal is going to be to shut him down. Like we talked about earlier when we thought we were going to play Colorado, the goal is going to be to shut down McKinnon, Kadri, and the good defenseman, Makar. That was going to be the Stars' goal. With the Blues, you're definitely right. There's not one guy you have to shut down. You have to shut down the Blues. And that's what that franchise has been good at for a while now, is having a good, balanced team that plays good and structured. Now, the biggest question mark that I think you were going to get to, but hadn't yet, is going to be the goaltending. Marc-Andre Fleury, big X factor.
And right, we should get into that because in net for Minnesota, you got 2 really good goalies. I mean, not just Flower. Flower is excellent, and I would be very surprised if he doesn't get the start in game 1 just because he's Marc-Andre Fleury. But you've also got Talbot, who's been better, through the end of the regular season. But when you look at the goaltending for St. Louis, there's a bit of a question mark there because you would think it'd be Jordan Binnington because of the success he had in 2019, but he did not have a good season this year, and it looks like that Ville Husso might be the starter for game 1. Now, it hasn't been confirmed that that's the case yet, if they're going to go with Binnington or if they're going to go with Husso. But if I'm Craig Berube, the St. Louis head coach, I'm going with Husso because Husso has been the better goalie of recent. I know that he hasn't had the success in the playoffs like Binnington has, but who's been the better goalie over the course of the year? And you have to go with the guy that's hot. I mean, you just have to. So with all of that in mind, I mean that's so many, factors that you have to go into thinking about what this is going to be. no doubt in my mind, this series goes to at least 6. This at least has to go to 6. If it doesn't go to 7, I will be shocked. But who do you give the edge to in this series, you guys? I'll let y'all choose first.
I am going to do this consistently, and I'm going to default to goaltending. The better goalie is Marc-Andre Fleury, and he's going to win it in Game 7 for him. I'm calling Minnesota in 7.
So I'm also going with Minnesota for pretty much the same reason. I'm calling Minnesota in 6. I think the beginning of the series is going to be really, really strong from both teams. But I feel like Fleury can just, once he is in the rhythm and finally gets it, if he is the one playing, he's just going to steal the end of that series.
Yeah, Fleury's a guy we know that can get on hot streaks. You're definitely right about that, James.
And as much as I want to pick St. Louis because of the amount of different goal scorers they have, you have to default to gold. I mean, you have to. It's the most. It's basically like a quarterback in football. Typically, whoever has the better quarterback is going to win if the teams are evenly matched. And this is goaltending. So I think originally I picked St. Louis. I'm going with Minnesota as well. And I think Minnesota and Colorado will meet in the second round.
And for guys, sure that series, either way it goes, it's not going to be surprising. I mean, those teams are both insane.
Right.
Yeah, top 2 series in the first round. Absolutely.
Right. And whoever wins that series is going to give Colorado like heck in the second round. It doesn't matter who it is. It's just the only question mark that I have is St. Louis and net. And something we didn't mention is the defense for both teams. They don't necessarily have like a quote unquote, like, a Cale Makar, a Quinn Hughes, a Victor Hedman or someone like that. But they both have very, very good, capable defenses that can play on both sides of the puck. So, you just have to default to goaltending here. You absolutely have to, because this series is going to be huge, and it's going to be one that I watch. So
definitely, I'm going to watch this series.
All right, well, let's go ahead and skip the Dallas series for now. We'll come back to it, but let's do Edmonton, LA first, and then we'll come back to Calgary, and man, I wish. Wouldn't that be awesome if we could play Chicago?
That'd be way better.
Okay, so Edmonton and LA in the first round. Okay, so obviously the big storylines here is the fact that LA appears like their short little rebuild is over, and I would still maybe even say that they're still kind of doing the rebuild a little bit, but with as weak as the Pacific was this season, somebody had to make it, and LA made it, and they played well for a majority of the season. They had some instances where it looked like towards the end that Vegas might be able to overtake them. That did not happen, and so they've been able to make it into the playoffs as the number 3 seed in the Pacific. And then on the other side, you've got Edmonton. Obviously, Edmonton has a huge, potent offense. Everybody knows them as the potent offense. And then when you look at their defense is going to be fairly interesting because it's maybe better than it's been in the past. Maybe. I don't really know. It might be about the same. But then even the bigger factor in this is goaltending again. And not because of the fact that it's different, because it's still the same guys. It's still Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith. I have no doubt it will be Mike Smith in the starting net for game 1. Okay? But the question is which Mike Smith are you going to get? Because the thing that you have to think about is the fact that Mike Smith has been hurt for a good portion of this season, and that's just the way that he's been for the past couple of years because he's getting older. He's over 40 years old. But you have to look at the last couple of games here, and maybe not even just like the last couple. It's like the last 10 games. In the last 9 games, he is 9-0. 9-0. He's won every single game that he's played, and he has an over 950 save percentage over the course of those 9 games. That's just stupid insane. So you have to look at that and factor that into, okay, is he coming in hot? Or is that going to slow down when they go into the playoffs? So that's a factor you have to think about. And then on the other side, who do you have for LA? Jonathan Quick. You cannot count him out. I don't care that he's not the same guy that won the cup twice in 2012, 2014. He's still Jonathan Quick, and if he gets hot, just like Mike Smith, he can lead his team into a deep playoff run. So,
and not having a terrible year either. I mean, his save percentage right now is .910, goals against 2.59. I mean, it's definitely better than the years previous. So he's feeling it a little bit right now.
Right. So I think the question in this series as well comes down more so to goaltending than anything. I think a lot of these series are going to come down to goaltending. But ultimately, you guys put a number and a team who will win this series. Edmonton, LA.
I'm going directly against what I just said and not defaulting to goaltending. The one thing that we didn't mention is Drew Doughty is out. He is not going to play for the LA Kings no matter how deep they go. He got surgery on his wrist. He's done so. That's about 30 minutes a night of time on ice from Drew Doughty. He is ridden hard in LA and is counted on to be the backbone for the entire defense for their team, and is a huge leader for their team too. And I think him being gone, and the fact that I just don't think LA is really that great of a team, is gonna hurt them a lot. And I think McDavid and Draisaitl are going to be able to overpower them just with their skill alone, and I think they're going to be able to be quick, and I think it's going to be pretty easy. I don't think LA's that good. I think it's going to be Edmonton in 5.
Edmonton 5. Okay. James, you got anything else to add to that?
So I actually didn't know about the Drew Doughty thing. So I didn't know that in advance, but I still put Edmonton on this series. But it's really going to be, I think, McDavid and Draisaitl kind of overpowering in enough games. And actually, this was one of the series that I said would go to Game 7 because, I mean, Edmonton.
Ooh, really?
Let's be honest. Edmonton is not. It's not. They are not built for the playoffs. They have 2 players. You can shut them down for a couple of games. I think LA will find a way to shut those players down for 2 or 3 games and push it all the way to 7.
Without Drew Doughty, though, it's a tall task.
That's true.
So that's for me as well. I picked Edmonton to win this, and it's just because they've got Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So a lot of these playoff matchups, and the reason I picked each team is just due to a couple of players. So that's just me. Okay, guys, let's get into the Dallas series here. So we have the Calgary Flames versus the Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars just make it into the playoffs as the number 1 wild card after an insane last game of the regular season with the Arizona Coyotes and the Nashville Predators. Chris and I
just wasted a full 25 minutes of podcast.
Right, I know. Completely ruined our lives there.
Don't worry, y'all are not alone in that. There are so many other podcasts doing the same thing.
Yeah. I saw a tweet that said that Sagan bought concert tickets to watch Justin Bieber in Colorado, but no more Bieber because
Yep, no great joke. That's literally what I saw as well, and I think that was Taylor from Defending Big D. So that's me, but we'll see. We'll see. But anyways, guys, let's get serious here because I mean we want to be homers here. We want the Stars to win this playoff series. So let's spend a little bit more time with this series than we would any of the other series because we haven't really talked much about Calgary against the Stars because we expected it to be Colorado and total honesty. And what's kind of unfortunate with this is, yes, we get the easier team of the two, but they're both really, really good teams. And the other part of this is that we had a better record against Colorado in the regular season than we did against Calgary. So in the regular season versus the Calgary Flames, we went 1-for-2. And against Colorado, we were 2-1. So, I mean, pick your poison, I guess. But that was an unfortunate stat.
Good. One of the games that we lost to Calgary, though, we jumped ahead on them real fast. I think we had it was 4-1. I think at one point, and then Calgary pulled their goalie, switched him out, and we ended up losing the game 5-4. I think is what it was. So one of those games was definitely blown by the Stars too.
So ultimately, in my opinion, after doing a lot of soul searching and a lot of research, especially into this series for obvious reasons, this is a battle of first lines when it comes to this series. You've got the top line of the Dallas Stars, Pavelski, Robertson, and Hintz. And then you've got the top line of the Calgary Flames, which is Elias Lindholm, Johnny Gaudreau, who had over a 100-point season this season, and also Matthew Tkachuk. So what's really going to come down to it is which team can shut down the other team's top line. Now, here's my problem. True. Here's my problem with this, though. Let's just assume that both top lines are shut down, because that's a real possibility. Who would you give the edge to for the second lines on each team?
Neither of them.
But Steve,
like, neither has a second line.
Steve, but
I mean, neither really. It is like they have a few more goals on their second line, but like,
and I just don't have. I don't have any faith in that second line with Ben Sagan and whoever the heck they put on that second.
That's also
true. This morning.
Yeah, but I mean, like, really. These teams are so similar in the way that they rely on the people they rely on. The Flames rely on their goaltending and they rely on their first line. And who are we always looking to? Every single game we're relying on goaltending and we're relying on our first line, game in and game out. It's like it's scary how similar even like the point totals in both these teams, like how there's gaps in like the same spots. Yep. I truly have no clue how this is gonna pan out if both first lines get shut down, which I don't think is gonna happen anyway, honestly.
And so we talk about that. So I mean, that's really going to be the biggest deal is which line is going to be better, the top line for the Calgary Flames, the top line for the Stars, and why. We talked about that. But you've also got a whole bunch of other players for the Calgary Flames that have done better than our second line. You got I think it's Backlund. I think it's their second line center. He's had a pretty good year. I got it
pulled up right here.
And then you got Mangiapane.
Yeah.
Mangiapane has scored over 30 goals. I think he got close to 40 this season, actually, if I remember correctly. Is that right, Chris?
I don't have that pulled up.
You got, okay, so he got 35 on the season. Okay, so that's another 30 goal scorer that the Stars don't have. Then the next closest guy for the Stars is Sagan, and he has 24.
The crazy thing is, though, like, even after Mangiapane, there's a 15 goal drop to Tyler Toffoli. Like, it's not like they don't have very much depth scoring either. I mean, both these teams, that's what they struggled with, and the Flames just dealt with it better.
Yeah,
and you know, some people over here in the chat are saying we should point this out. Saying they only have one line is silly. And is Dylan Dubé still on the Flames? Hate that dude. Yes. And funny story, Dylan Dubé is actually chosen from a second-round pick that the Stars gave to the Calgary Flames. So Dylan Dubé could have been a Dallas Star if you use that logic. Yeah. But anyways,
to get to Eric's comment, it seems silly. Like, their second line is Backlund, Toffoli, and Mangiapane. But, like, James showed you the stats. Like, Toffoli's not playing great. I mean, the one who had a great season is Mangiapane, and he's definitely their biggest chance to score goals past their first line. But that's kind of it. So their first line is still the main portion of their team, and is where the majority of their goal production is coming from. So even though the names suggest that it should be otherwise.
Well, and then let me pull this up too, because this is a really good comment here by Ardell and something that we should be aware of. Is the fact that the 5-on-5 numbers for Calgary are absolutely insane. I believe 80 out of the 100 that Johnny Gaudreau scored this season was on 5-on-5, not power play. And I think all three of those guys on that top line are plus 40 or above, if I remember correctly after doing some research. So just the fact that
I think they're top 3 and plus minus in the league is that line.
Yeah, and they're top in the last like 10 years too. It's not like they're leaps and bounds above everyone else this year.
Which is another, you know, if you want to do a checklist for something, that's another check for the Calgary Flames there. But let's go ahead and
honestly,
get into
that kind of. Sorry, I just want to mention one more thing. That kind of works for the way that the Stars would want to play them, though, too, doesn't it? Like, we want to play our checking line that isn't supposed to score against those guys. Sadly, they're not supposed to score, but that's kind of what their job is. So it kind of works out to be like, okay, y'all do have a pretty good two-way first line, but we don't really care. We're gonna just play defense against it anyway. So I feel like that kind of works out for us. I mean, obviously it's not great. They're incredible on the offensive side, but we don't have to worry too much about them being skilled defensively because we're not going to get goals from our checking line anyway.
Do you have anything else to add to that, James, at all?
Well, I was just going to look at the plus minuses for both the teams as a whole, because the Stars are they're like minus 10, right?
Which the only team with the negative goal differential.
The only team with the negative, and it's the worst goal differential the Stars have had while making the playoffs. But even with that, like, our top line is still plus 16, plus 15, and plus 11. For a team who went minus 11 on the whole season, that's pretty freaking good.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And also there was one other thing that I thought to bring up is that Markstrom had like 11 shutouts. Yeah. So that helps your plus minus quite a bit too when your goaltender just stops everything in the regular season.
Yeah, which that's probably the next thing we should get into because Markstrom is having a monster season.
Oh my goodness, he's
go ahead.
This year, his save percentage is .922. His goals against average is .222. He has 9 shutouts on the season, 9 official shutouts at least, and 37 wins. He is having a career year, and even with the first line, which is probably the best first line in the league right now, he is still the biggest danger to the Stars, I think, in this series. You got to find a way to break him.
Well, and a lot of people are pointing at the fact that the Stars beat the Flames back in 2020 bubble playoffs. And I got two comments to that's not good for the Stars here. First off, it was the bubble playoffs, so that's just a totally different beast. It was completely different. We'd never see that, and we'll never see it again probably. Knock on wood. And then they also did not have Jacob Markstrom. Their starting goalie was Cam Talbot. And I mean, Markstrom is a huge upgrade over Cam Talbot. No offense to Cam Talbot, who's a pretty decent goaltender himself. But Markstrom is just that much better, which is not good for the best
career. And he's having the best season of his career.
Right. And then when you look at the Stars, unfortunately, as much as we love Jake Ottinger is completely untested in the NHL playoffs. Now, in his career, he has played in some enormous games. I mean, in the NCAA, I was listening to to Podman Rush actually today.
That's what I did today too.
and Matt DeFranks was, if you haven't listened to that episode where they talk about the playoff hockey, you should go listen to it because it was a very good episode there. But Matt DeFranks was on. He was talking about all these different instances where Jay Ottinger has been put into really scary situations and, situations that have made him better and that could be seen as equivalent to, Stanley Cup playoff experience. But again, it's not the Stanley Cup. It's not the Stanley Cup experience. He doesn't have any right now. The bubble playoffs don't count. So
and it's not saying that it's not saying that that's a negative on him. It's just a question mark. I mean, we're going to see how he reacts. I mean, the Vegas game was super awesome, in my opinion. I love seeing that. Seemed like a good indicator. But still, Stanley Cup playoffs is a unique animal. It changes the game completely, which some people may agree with or disagree with, but it's true as of now. So we'll just see how he reacts. Same for Markstrom, though, honestly. I mean, not a ton of big games for the guy, I don't feel like. And here he is as one of the favorites to be at the Stanley Cup. We'll see how he handles that pressure too, because he's going to be expected to lead his team. So big question marks on both sides. But if I had to place my bet, I'd place it on Markstrom.
So let's look at the one aspect of the teams that we haven't looked at yet, and that's the defense.
Well, let me just go a little bit more into the goaltending just a little bit because
James is like, no, we're not leaving goaltending.
Well, Eric brought up that Markstrom doesn't have playoff experience either. If we're going off of that, it's a huge point. And to be fair, I mean, honestly, how tense has all of Calgary's games been this season? They are not playing 1-goal games. A lot of the time, even when Markstrom has a shutout going, they're ahead by 3 or 4 goals. And Otter has been playing. He's been playing like half his games in overtime, and he's winning them. So honestly, if I'm going with who does better under pressure, I still think Otter gets that.
That's fair. So, I think that's totally fair. And moving on to defense, like Ryan's saying, no team is going to give them more defensive troubles and a harder forecheck than the Stars will. So you can go ahead with defense, Ryan.
So here's the thing about this team, though. I think that if there's one category that the Stars have the upper hand in, it's defense. And it's specifically our defensemen. So, I mean, let me just point out the defensemen here for Calgary, okay? You got Anderson. You have Chris Tanev, who's really good. You have Nikita Zadorov, who is ginormous. He's huge. He's like 6'5". You've got, let's see, Goodbranson, who is also ginormous and huge. He makes up that giant third pairing for his team. You got Noah Hannafin, and then you have Shillington, who is kind of come into his own in this season. But then on the Stars front, you look at our defense. You got Miro Heiskanen, you got John Klingberg, you have Esa Lindell, Yanni Hakanpää, Ryan Suter, Joe Hanley, and who else am I forgetting, you guys? Harley. You got Harley as well there. And if I'm looking at them both and I'm looking at them objectively, not, emotionally invested in a team or something, I think the Stars have the upper hand here when it comes to Calgary. And whether that be, on the defensive side of defensemen or on the offensive side of defensemen. Because, I mean, the Calgary defense is very good. Like, as a group, they are very good and very solid. But they don't really have, quote-unquote, a number one guy, if that makes any sense, right? Like,
yeah, they don't have a guy that'll lock down the other team's superstar.
Right. Like, our number one guy is, hands down, Miro Heiskanen. And then John Klingberg could even be seen as a number one defenseman for some teams even. So we've got two number one guys here. And then you've got a team in Calgary that doesn't really have that. So I think that is the one aspect that the Stars have over the Calgary Flames. Do y'all think that's a fair assessment there or no?
Yeah, the Stars, agree with that. I think the Stars have probably one of the most recognizable D lines in the league, honestly. I mean, they don't always play elite, and they haven't been playing crazy elite this year, but I mean, we pick up someone like Hakanpää even, and that's honestly such a big pickup. Now, looking back at the offseason, that dude is going to be huge in this playoff series.
And me and Ryan said that when it happened. Lots of people didn't like it.
So, we've kind of hammered everything to death.
One more thing, you got to talk about the forecheck. The Dallas Stars are gonna beat up on the Flames, I think, on the forecheck, and especially just punishing the first line whenever we get a chance. And we've proved that we're good at that. That was the main thing that I thought we were best at in the bubble playoffs, and it's the reason why we beat the Colorado Avalanche. Nathan MacKinnon in the beginning of that series was beating up on us, especially the first two games. He kind of controlled those, and he was the difference maker. As the series went along, he got hammered down so much that by game 7, he did nothing. He was non-existent. And I think that's why the Stars are such a great playoff team, is because they play the long game of it's a 7-game series. We're going to wear you down starting game 1 face off.
James, you got anything else before we make our final predictions for who wins the series?
Well, there was one other comment. I can't find it, but they said how the Stars are the best NHL team in 1-goal games this year. Like, by far, they're it's 26, 6, and 6 or something like that, which is stupid, absolutely
28,
insane.
6-6. 28.
I was
6
close. That's pretty good. Okay. But I mean, that is a big plus when it comes to the playoffs, especially because you're going to be playing tight games.
They're almost
every
all
night.
Tight.
Yeah. And the best, like the other team's never going to give up.
Yep. And that's an intangible, like you were mentioning earlier, how the Flames haven't been in any must-win games. The Stars have been in must-win games since the All-Star break, and they've figured out a way to do it.
All right. Who wins the series and how many games, you guys?
I am completely biased in this answer, 100%, but this is the most likely upset of the first round, honestly. In my opinion, this is the most likely team to be upset. And I think Dallas wins it in 6. I think Markstrom is not going to show up. We're going to lock down their first line, and we're going to take it in 6.
Okay, James?
I look at the stats and I want to say that we're not going to win this, but I'm a Stars fan, so we're going to win this. Like, it's going to happen, right? And then I'm going to cry when it doesn't, or if it doesn't, and hope that it does happen. I really hope this happens. I put Stars in 6 as well. I think if this goes to Game 7, it probably still leads towards the Stars' favor, in my opinion. But I really feel like if it by the time we make it to 6, we'll probably already know who's going to win the series.
I agree.
All right, you guys. Y'all are not gonna like me.
You're gonna be the realist.
I understand it, Ryan. I just don't like it.
I'm gonna be the realist. I just don't. With every ounce of my being, it is killing me to say this, but I can't see it, and there's too many questions. And it's not that I don't want it. I obviously want it. I want them to prove me wrong. So maybe they'll see this episode, they'll see me, talking about why they're not going to win, and they'll go out and say, we're going to beat up Ryan and show him why he's wrong. But I just don't see it. I mean, Dallas has no offense after that first line, and if both first lines are nixed, Calgary has the upper hand in that. You've got Markstrom in net. All season, we haven't seen Dallas defensemen put up goals, which is what we saw in the bubble playoffs and which is what made us successful. We saw it in the last game against Anaheim. Okay, great. It was Joel Hanley and
the wrong guys.
Harley. Right. And Harley, exactly.
Good for them, though.
So
yeah, good for them, though.
So I'm gonna be a realist and say that Calgary is gonna win it in the first round, and I'll say 7 games just because it's the Stars. So I'll say Calgary in 7, but that's just what I think, and I hope to every ounce of my being that I'm wrong. Okay, so
honestly, if Calgary wins this series, I think they probably win it in 5. Honestly,
really.
The longer this series goes on, the more it leans towards the Stars.
Okay, well, so for Colorado, we said in 4, I believe. Minnesota, we said that this is going to take 7 games here in this series. So we'll say 7 for Minnesota here. How many games do you want to say for this series, you guys? 7?
Is this your bracket?
Yeah, sort of, kind of.
Just do yours.
If it's your bracket, then you just take the picks, man.
Okay, so I'll say
got my
7.
bracket pulled up.
And then for Edmonton and Los Angeles, I forgot how many games I said. I don't think I said any games. I think I said 6 here. So this is my bracket. If you guys want to share your screen so we can pull up yours, we can show that too. But Colorado in 4, Minnie in 7, Calgary in 7, Edmonton in 6. So that's just what I think. All right,
Ryan playing safe, no upsets.
Yep, at least not here.
I mean, honestly, it's Minnesota or the Blues an upset. That's the same team.
Right, that was about to say, yeah. But
either team wins that, it's an upset. So
yeah,
right. So I mean, Yeah, I mean that's not really an upset if St. Louis wins because they're so evenly matched. So I'm speaking of another 2-3 matchup. We'll get to that here in a second. But all right, Eastern Conference. Here we go. Florida and Washington is first up. So Florida with an absolutely incredible, amazing season. They end with a positive. I forget. It's like a positive.
It's
goal differential of like over 110 or something like that.
I don't know. They lost 8 of it in the last game. So
true.
So, all right. So here's some of the stats for them. They average over 4 goals a game. That's insane. And then you got Washington, who averages over about 3.3. That's just stupid. Goals against 2.86 for the Panthers, 2.95 for the Washington Capitals.
Still favors the Panthers. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. That's stupid. And it just shows you how much of a bounce back season Sergei Bobrovsky has had. He's had a much better season this year than he did last year.
They also just score goals till the other team gives up. So,
or they just play with their food and let the team get like 5 or 6 goals, like a 5-6.
Just take it over.
Turn it around and win the game like 8-6 or something like that.
Oh man.
So, all right, I feel like this is an easy choice, you guys. Is there anything else we need to talk about with this series? I didn't think so.
No.
Since you think it's an easy choice, this was my one-off game. I threw it to the Washington Capitals. Actually,
bull crap.
No,
I put it on my bracket. It is over. It's on our little bracket playoff thing. I gave it to Washington in 7.
Oh my!
Is there any reason, or is it just gut reaction?
Florida's not going to get out of the first round, and it's gut reaction.
That's
I do not feel. I know Florida's so crazy, and they're just destroying everything and everyone. I don't know. I don't feel it.
How many
games? I
really
really feel Washington. I put Washington in 7. I really think they can steal
7 games.
So did I mention, James, that Aaron Ekblad is returning for the playoffs, and also for the playoffs, Alex Ovechkin may not even play game 1.
I still think they can steal it, man. I don't know. I do not have faith in the Florida Panthers in the postseason. Yeah, I really feel it. It feels like a Tampa choke to me. It feels like it's going to creep on them, and then they're just going to lose it.
Everyone's saying the same thing. There's no way they can lose in the first round. They're just so good. I can see that.
I just don't.
I think you're wrong. 4-5.
I don't trust them.
Ardell saying Ovechkin is more man on one leg than anyone on 2. Dude is a savage. No joke. And he's like 37, 38. Oh, and just throw it in another 50-goal season on top of that. Yeah, I think he's like 9 or 10 of them now. That's so stupid.
10. Ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Move on to the next series. This is the fun one. Toronto versus Tampa.
Hold on. Okay, so James, you said in 7. Chris, what did you say? How many games for Florida?
5.
5. Okay, I said Florida in 4. Okay, anyway, this is the funnest series of the next ones. Chris, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, 3, 2, 1, go.
The Toronto Maple Leafs have not won a playoff series since there was no teams in the league, so that's fun. Tampa Bay is the back-to-back defending Stanley Cup champion who lost a bunch of players and is still somehow a really good hockey team. That's not fair. Tampa Bay also has the best goaltender of the past decade. Toronto does not have a great goaltender, and Toronto has the worst fan base in the league. So that's another downside.
Jeez.
Good thing.
All right, go ahead, Ryan. Hit him with the stats.
All right, let's go ahead and pull up the stats here that they've got here on the bracket challenge. Points are pretty similar. They're only 5 points apart. Goals per game, 3.79 for the Maple Leafs, 3.44 for the Lightning. And then here's the biggest one. Goals against per game, 2.77 for the Lightning, 3.09 for the Leafs, which is not good. And then here's a good thing for the Maple Leafs, though. When you look at the special teams, power play percentages in favor of the Maple Leafs, 27.2 versus 23.6 for the Lightning, and 82.4 for the penalty kill, and 80.9% in favor of the Toronto Maple Leafs here. So this is a really interesting series because it's a team that's not gotten out of the first round. They played even better this year, but it's still they have to go and defeat their demons by beating the defending Stanley Cup champions in back-to-back years, and that's their first round matchup. That just sucks. It just absolutely.
I think it's great.
It sucks. It sucks for Maple Leafs fans.
One great thing for Maple Leafs fans is the Leafs have the best power play in the league, and Tampa Bay is the second most penalized team in the league. So that's going to be a big thing to watch for going throughout this series is can Tampa Bay stay out of the box, and can Toronto capitalize on every single one of those chances? And
really,
the big thing with power play is going to be how good is Tampa's goalie going to be? I mean, we know he's amazing. He's got to be the best player on the ice, especially on the penalty kill.
And really, that's where it comes down to for me too, Chris. Is it's going to be the power play for the Leafs. It's going to be if Austin Matthews can be shut down on the power play. He has like 16 goals on the season on the power play, which I don't know if that's how high that is in league standing, but that's pretty freaking good. So really, it comes down to if Tampa can shut down that power play for me.
Yeah, and the other big wild card that I was thinking of in this series is the fact that Tampa's defense is non-existent. I mean, we already mentioned it with the goals against per game, but their blue line is also just not good. I mean,
Tampa or Toronto?
Toronto, sorry, I misspoke.
Okay. They're both
Toronto's
blue.
Blue line is not very good. They are both blue. That is going to be very confusing.
It's the most confusing one to look at on the entire bracket.
But it's going to be the most fun. I mean,
this is the number one series to watch in the first round.
If this is not the number one series, then it's the Minnesota-St. Louis series. But this one's going to be very fun to watch. All right, okay, so the other thing I did want to talk about real quick was the defense, because you very briefly mentioned it, Chris, but you really got to dig into it. You got Victor Hedman, you got Sergachev, you got Ryan McDonough, you got Chernak. I mean, Tampa's defense is just that much better than Toronto's. Now, Toronto's is better than it was the last couple of years. They played much better defensively this season than they have the past 2 years, and that was one of their downfalls against Montreal, was the fact that they got out-defensed big time. And, I mean, you've got Muzzin, you've got Giordano over there, which is sad. It's sad for a reason here in a second. And you've got Morgan Riley. They've got a good defense, but I just don't think it's as good as Tampa's is. And then we have to look at the fact that the goaltending right now, I mean, you absolutely 100% have to give it to Andrei Vasilevsky. And that's even if Jack Campbell was 100% healthy, which I don't think he is. He had a really good start to the season where he was being talked about for possible Vezina, which he deserved those talks at the beginning of the season. But he trailed off a lot, and he got really bad, and he got hurt. And I think he's going to be in net for the first round. But I just don't see how in any nature that you could say that Toronto has better goaltending than Tampa does. So with that, what's y'all's prediction in this series?
My prediction is a great series, but Tampa is going to win it in Game 7, and it's going to be a blowout in Game 7. There's going to be tears. There's going to be crying. It's going to be like Brazil versus Germany in the World Cup.
Oh, my goodness. I remember that. Oh, my. Oh my. So
I went Tampa as well in 6 on this one. Tampa in 6. The Leafs really can win this series if they take advantage of special teams. If they're better on both sides of the puck on special teams. If they can control the special teams for the entire series, they can still win the series, I feel. But really, I still give it to Tampa Bay right now.
All right, I'm going to eat my words. I'm also choosing Tampa. I've reversed course because I'm looking at it logically, right? You know, my whole, you got to learn how to lose before you got to win kind of thing. That philosophy works well for Toronto, but when you look at the numbers, it just doesn't make sense. You have to look at it logically. And the fact that, again, goaltending, the most important position. and you can't go against Andrei Vasilevsky. And it's also the defending Stanley Cup champions, and you can't. You have to give them the benefit of the doubt until they lose. You must give them the benefit of the doubt because they're the Tampa Bay Lightning and they won the Cup 2 years in a row. So that's just me. And plus, I'd really like to see a Battle of Florida in the second round. So, that'd be kind of fun. So I think that Tampa is going to win it. I think it's going to take 7 games, though. I think it will take 7 games because I think Toronto is going to give every ounce of their being to try and win their first round, but I just don't see it. And I mean, I'll obviously be rooting for Toronto because I don't like Tampa Bay because they beat the Stars in the bubble playoffs, but still, I think it's going to be Tampa Bay who wins it. So, okay, next series we got Carolina and Boston. Carolina is a favorite for Chris. Chris really likes the Carolina Hurricanes, so I have a feeling I know which way he's going to go with this. But anyways, what do you guys have going on in this series, and what do y'all want to talk about with this series?
Carolina is going to dominate the Boston Bruins. It's not going to be close. They are very good defensively. Their offense, obviously, still great. They're a much more well-rounded team than they were the previous years when they were contenders. Those seasons, they were really just an offense. This year, they've got a very well-rounded team, a team that can really go deep in the playoffs and can rely on multiple different people and doesn't just rely on outscoring their problems. This team is my favorite to win the Stanley Cup, and they're going to beat Boston in 4 games. It's going to be a sweep.
Really? Okay. So you said, all right, so this is another sweep that Chris has got going for.
You got a lot of sweeps, Chris.
I got 2 sweeps.
Oh, I thought you had more than that. Maybe I'm merging.
No, yeah. I have 2 5-gamers, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, this is my sweep pick as well, actually. I'm going Carolina in 4 as well. I think this is where Boston has finally shown that they have to rebuild. I think this is the year that they're just going to get blown out and then they're just going to have to restart.
Okay, well, what leads you to believe that, James? Because I can understand that, but what leads you to think about that? Just the age of the players?
It's the age of the players on the Boston Bruins. They really don't have they don't have anyone younger on that team who's really going to help them, even if they are able to push into the playoffs at all. I mean, I know they're gonna have that drive still because this is probably one of their last runs, if not their last run. And I don't know. I just don't see it. Carolina is just they look so strong. They've looked strong for years now, and I really think that they're just gonna destroy the Boston Bruins.
And Carolina has now what I feel like the Stars have too, where they have the ability where they can just grind a team down over a 7-game series. So like I said, this one's going 4 games. I think they're just going to dominate this one. As they progress through the playoffs, they're going to have that ability just to wear down the other team's top guy and make them a non-factor in the late games.
Well, let me jump on two points here that I'm going to jump on off of both of y'all's comments here. The other thing I think, Chris, that they have going for them for the Carolina Hurricanes is their forecheck. I mean, we've seen it against the Stars.
That's what I'm talking about mostly.
Yeah, I mean, their forecheck is just absolutely freaking insane. And the Rod Brindamore has made that team into a beast mode. And the whole team, just the way they forecheck is scary. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, James, because here's my question. So you said about Boston and the fact that they're going to get blown out because of all their aging players. Okay, but you could say the same thing about Washington, and you picked Washington to beat the Florida Panthers. What's the difference?
You already admitted that was illogical.
Okay. I knew that was illogical, but it still makes more sense than this series because in Florida, they don't have any defense. You can get past them and you can score goals on them. And it's the same way both ways. You can score goals on them both ways. But in this series, and just something that I
6 goals per game for Florida. That's not top in the league, but that's really good.
It's not bad. It's good, but I still feel like the Florida Panthers just are not there yet. They don't have a playoff
That's
team
fair.
at all, in my opinion.
And that's fair. That's fair to say that.
And one other thing that I just looked at the season series between the Boston Bruins and the Hurricanes.
Oh yeah, they got outscored.
First game
like
3-0, second game 7-1, last game 6-0. They scored 1 goal in 3 games against the Hurricanes.
Now,
no chance.
Now, here's my thought process about that as well, because this leads me back to the bubble playoffs when I believe it was the Rangers and the Hurricanes. And the Hurricanes were very upset that they had to play against the Rangers because the Rangers were then moving their way up. They were really starting to become the Rangers again and getting better. But in the season series with those guys, even though the Rangers were the lesser team, the Rangers had outplayed the Hurricanes in all 3 of those games. Now, when you look at that play-in round, what happened? Hurricanes won all 3. Wasn't even close. So some people had picked the Rangers as the upset in that best of 5 series. So
yeah, but
I'm not trying to say that like, oh well, I think that it's stupid. No, I don't think that's not a good point. But what I'm saying is that you could make that point that the regular season series is useless because it's the playoffs. But it still is a decent point to point out that they were outscored.
Yeah, it's useless in a lot of stances, I'm sure. That's totally fair. But you're talking about you scored 1 goal against this team. I mean, Anderson had 4 shutouts and 2 of them were against Boston. Carolina literally has the best matchup in the entire first round, in my opinion. Like they should easily win this. Even if it's not a sweep, they should win this series, like no matter what.
Okay, so how many games do you well, Chris already said, but James, how many games?
I said 4 as well. I really don't think that Boston stands a chance in this series. There's a difference between playing well and losing to a team and losing to a team 3-0 and then 6-0 and 7-1 as well. So,
and I'll agree with you here. I think it's going to be Carolina. There have been some people who think Boston's going to make it, but I just don't see it with as good as Carolina has been this year. Now, the only question for Carolina is their goaltending, because we got to talk about it. Because Freddie Anderson, it looks like he's hurt. I don't think he's going to start game 1. I believe that's been confirmed. He's not going to start game 1. So it's going to be Antti Raanta. But when you look at the other side in Boston has 2 goalies that are unproven as well. So they've got oh my goodness, help me out. Olmark, formerly of the Buffalo Sabres, I think he's playing his first real playoff series. Yeah. And then they've got rookie goaltender Jeremy Swayman. Now they've both had decent seasons. But again, this is the playoffs, so it's untested. So you can kind of like wash those both off to the side and just focus on everything else. And I think that just Carolina is going to be too good for Boston. So I don't think it's going to be a sweep like you guys think. Because I think Boston's going to put up a fight. I'm going to say in 6, but I do think that Carolina is going to win the series. So, okay, and then for our last first round matchup, we've got the New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins here. So for these guys, this is an interesting one because I've seen lots of people going both ways for both of these teams. One of y'all jump in on this and tell me what you think about these 2 teams and who's going to win.
I'll just go straight out and say that the Rangers are going to win for 2 reasons only. Igor Shesterkin and Adam Fox. Those guys are going to be amazing in the playoffs. Shesterkin this year has a .935 save percentage and a 2.07 goals against average, 36 wins. That's
stupid.
Disgusting stats. That is nasty. Tristan Jarry on the other side isn't so bad either. 919, 2.42, but those numbers from Shesterkin are stupid. He's got to be a Vezina finalist. So he's going insane mode. Adam Fox, he needs to. He's a guy who can control a series on his own. He has like that Miro Heiskanen potential. He reminds me a lot of Heiskanen in that way, that he can just do whatever he wants with the puck, and he can take over a game if he needs to. So those 2 reasons alone, New York Rangers in 6.
This year has been like this playoff series or this whole like first round has been so weird for me because like all the like there's so many good goaltenders that are coming in who have no playoff experience. I mean, Shesterkin has 1 playoff game. That's all he's played.
Yep.
He's just as unproven as
Ottinger.
like as the other half of it feels like the goaltenders that are going into this. It's I think this is going to be a real test for Shesterkin and if he's here to stay here and dominate, or if he just had a really good regular season. And I lent towards the Penguins on this one. This one was also a gut feeling. I put Penguins in 6 on this one.
All right, and Chris, you said New York Rangers in 5?
6.
6, excuse me. Okay, 6. Okay, so and it's funny we talked about all those numbers. It's just a gut feeling too, James. I have to pick Pittsburgh, but it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't
because you got
it does make sense. It's hard to bet against Crosby. I mean,
it really is.
Ovechkin might be the best. Ovechkin might be the best player of this era, but Crosby is the best winner of this era. He has won everything.
And also Crosby is like super well rounded as a player too. I mean, Ovechkin, he scores like crazy and it's insane, but Crosby's right there on his tail in points. And I really feel like Crosby has a more defensive play even.
And
this is so weird.
People, we got some people who are kind of trolling us over here, James.
No, it's not.
This is not your bread and butter.
I mean, I don't watch any Eastern games, so I can just make up whatever the heck I want.
Ardell laughing. Eric saying, Ryan, what are you doing? I don't know, man, but I can't go against the Penguins for some reason. And it doesn't make any sense, but every time I had Pittsburgh not even making the playoffs this year. I had them, I think, 7th in their division, like not even close. And it just every single time they prove to me that they're able to find some way into the playoffs. Now, here's the only thing that bothers me about picking the Penguins is their recent playoff success. They've gone out in the first round the last 3 years. They've been able to make the playoffs, but they've gone out the last 3 years.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for you, too, because you did it for me. Why did you pick Florida Panthers in the first round then? They don't make it out of the first round either.
Just because their freaking goal differential, 100 plus 120. Right? Yes.
It's the same idea.
But it's also the same idea with the Boston Bruins and the Washington Capitals. Is you've got older teams who are still kind of there, and you're like, it's hard to go against these teams, but you have these other teams who ended the regular season better, and you're like, what are you supposed to do?
And honestly, I'm so excited for the Eastern Conference purely because like these teams have known that they're going to be in the playoffs for months now. Like they have been in their spots for a long time. Really, who's going to turn it on? Like who turned it off earlier at the trade deadline? Or like, okay, we're in a playoff spot. Okay, we're fine. Who's gonna like show up and just be that dominant team in the playoffs? And I have no freaking clue. I don't watch the Eastern Conference. I know. I mean, the Central's been fighting for position and in playoff spots in general for all the way up to the last day, the last game of the season. I feel like it's going to be really interesting to watch the Eastern Conference.
Sadly, James, I know the answer to your question, and it's going to be Tampa Bay. They're the best playoff team that we've seen recently.
Screw you, Chris.
Okay, honestly, that's what I went for too.
I don't like the answer either, but that's the answer.
But really, I feel like everyone in the East can like one team can just show up and they can make it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. Like it. Yeah. I mean, of course, that's true in like the Western Conference too. Yeah, it's like it's true, and like whatever any team can do that, but. I mean, we haven't seen any like Eastern Conference like playoff game style games. Whereas like
I know what you mean.
Yeah, we played the Golden Knights the other night, and like that was a
playoff
win
game.
And you're in game. Like that was it. Yeah, we didn't get to see any of that in the Eastern Conference.
For the East, it's easier to see one team popping off and just dominating it easily. Is what you're trying to say.
Well, I mean, all 8 teams,
but easier than the West at least. Yeah. So they're all good teams. But that being said, the other teams in the East are also pretty bad.
Okay.
All right.
So
real quick,
we've talked about every team in depth. So let's do this quick, and we'll talk about each of these matchups. Okay. Second round.
Reason for why you determine each matchup?
Huh?
Just give your number one reason for why each team wins each series. That's the way we'll finish it out tonight.
Okay, Colorado and Minnesota, you guys. Who do we got here?
It's going to be Colorado. Nathan McKinnon's going to overpower. Colorado, just overall as a team, is just more well-rounded, in my opinion.
Okay.
I put Minnesota. Flower's going to be a beast. Colorado has second-round demons.
True.
And you know what? I'm going to agree with James here. It's Fleury. He's going to do Fleury things, and he's going to take care of it. So, in Colorado is not going to be able to get out of the second round, and they've proven to us, and even against our team, that they can't get out of the second round. Yeah, and it's every single year. Okay, Battle of Alberta. Oh wait, Chris. Wait, did you already say yours?
Yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay.
He put Colorado.
Okay, Battle of Alberta in the second round. This will be fun to watch, assuming that this is what happens, for me at least.
You give that one, Ryan. Me and James disagree with you.
Yeah.
Yep, so I'll go ahead and say who I think will win in this series. It's going to be Calgary, hands down. There's no question between those two teams who's the better team. And, it goes down to goaltending. And the defense for Calgary is better than Edmonton's, in my opinion. So that's why I would put Calgary in that series. I think it's both of these series will go deep. This one's going to go to 6 because if it goes to 7, I think Colorado will win because they want to exercise those demons out of them. Calgary is going to win in 6 though as well over the Edmonton Oilers. So that's just me.
So for me,
you guys had Dallas.
We have Dallas and Edmonton in this matchup. I'm taking Dallas. We talked about how important it was to get into that first wildcard spot because the Pacific Division side is just easier overall. That's going to come into play this time. No matter who it is between Edmonton or LA, I think Dallas wins the series. I think it's going to be Edmonton. All we have to do is lock down McDavid and Draisaitl. All we have to do. But we've proven we can do that, we've proven that we can, and we've proven that we can wear down really good players with Nathan McKinnon in that series 2 years ago. So I think the Stars are going to take this. It's going to be in 6.
I'm not sure that it matters whether the Stars win in the Calgary matchup or Calgary does. I don't think Edmonton's making it past either of those teams in the playoffs. Both of these teams are super. They're super defensive style teams. They have better goaltending than Edmonton does. I don't think they stand a chance. I put, I didn't have the amount of games for my second round, but I'll pick for this one. I think Dallas will win this series in 5 if they make it here.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
I don't have faith in Edmonton.
James going strong here. Well, I mean, they did it against the Vegas Golden Knights in the conference final in the Bubba playoffs, so why not? Yeah. Okay.
Right, you and me, Ryan, we have Florida, Tampa Bay.
All right, I'll let you go first.
All right, I am gonna say it's finally time for the Giant to be taken down. Tampa Bay is gonna lose to the Florida Panthers.
Heck yes.
Panthers are going to the conference finals. This one's gonna be in 7 games.
I agree. I picked Florida to win my series in that semifinal matchup. And I just think that I know that offense doesn't really win championships and defense wins championships, but Florida's offense is just it's too much offense.
It's overpowering.
And they have a goalie who is more than capable of being able to be that backstop for them. And their defense is still good too. I mean, Aaron Ekblad, Mackenzie Weegar, both of those guys are still really good. So I think Florida wins it. It's going to take 7 games, though. I agree, to beat the defending Stanley Cup champions.
All right, James, Washington and Tampa.
Yeah, I had Washington and Tampa. I mean, it's Tampa, obviously.
Battle of the upsets.
Yeah, it's Tampa I'll say in 6 in this one. I mean, at this point, I mean, Washington's going to still be beat up from that Florida series, I think. So there's not a chance they win the second round. Tampa is in the conference finals for me.
All right, and that leads us to Carolina and Pittsburgh for me and James, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and then you had New York. Okay. So
New York.
I don't think it matters for me. Whoever plays the Carolina Hurricanes, it'll be Carolina who wins that series. Just for the fact that they are a better, more well-rounded team. They'll beat the crap out of the Pittsburgh Penguins, especially just because Pittsburgh is just an older team, and the way that Carolina forechecks, I think, will be too much for Pittsburgh. If it's New York, it's Igor Shesterkin. I just think that it's going to be too much for Carolina to handle, or too much for Shesterkin to handle with the Carolina offense. Sebastian Aho, Vincent Trocheck, Svechnikov, all that stuff. I think it'll be too much. So Carolina for me over Pittsburgh. I think this is going to be the one that I said is going to be in 5. So James, what about you?
I pick Carolina in 7 on this one. I really think that, I don't know, Pittsburgh is, I feel like they're just going to put up a fight this year. I don't know why I feel that way. It's gut feeling completely, but
last chance.
Yeah, last chance.
It feels like it.
I really feel like still Carolina is going to feel like they're in control of this whole series. So Carolina in 7.
Yep.
Okay, Chris, you've got Carolina and the Rangers in this particular matchup. So what do you think?
I agree with your first statement. Doesn't matter who plays Carolina. They're going to win it. With the Rangers, it's going to be a super low-scoring series. Carolina's going to stifle their offense. They're going to stop Adam Fox, and they're going to get to Shesterkin enough, at least, to win the series. I'm going to say, if it's New York, Carolina in 7.
Okay. All right. So I think James, you and I have the same conference match. No, you have this. You have the Stars, don't you?
Yeah.
So okay. So for me, I'll go ahead and do mine then. So for me in the Western Conference Final, I've got Minnesota and Calgary, and this was a really hard decision for me, just because I think both of these teams are very good, well-rounded teams. They've got a lot of guys that can score. Both defenses are pretty good as well. But my thing is that Calgary, they've been able to lean on their first line through the playoffs. I think it's going to be too much for them. Minnesota just has too many guys that can score. They have 3 balanced lines, and they just don't have Calgary just doesn't have the firepower that Minnesota has balance-wise. I mean, obviously they've got that first line, but after that second line, I just don't see them getting enough scoring in order to not only get more scoring than Minnesota, but they also have to beat the best goalie of our generation, Marc-Andre Fleury. So for me, it's going to be Minnesota. It'll be 7 games. That's me. James, you've got Minnesota and Dallas. So in that series, who do you think would win that series?
I think this is where Dallas bows out here. I think Minnesota wins this series. At this point, Fleury will probably be on top of his game, and I don't think we have a chance against him. So I put Minnesota in the finals as well.
And then here I have Colorado and Dallas in the conference final. At this point, I'm kind of agreeing with James. It's more of a bow out thing. Our age is going to catch up to us. We're going to get some injuries, and we're not going to be able to keep up with the scoring of Colorado, is my opinion. So I think Colorado beats the Stars. I think they do it in 6 games.
And according to your bracket, that they've already gotten rid of their second round demons. They've made it into the 3rd round. So then at that point, that monkey on their back is off. Right. So Now, James, for me, with you had Minnesota and Dallas, right?
Yes.
Okay, so and you said that's where Dallas bows out, but I think that's a favorable matchup if the Stars make it to the conference final and it's Minnesota that they play against. I really do.
Not against a hot Marc-Andre Fleury.
No chance.
He plays so good against the Dallas Stars.
He loves playing good
us with
against
two
us.
different teams this year.
I hate that. Here's
where I was going. Here's where I was going with this, is that there's a little bit of hope there in the fact that Otter outdueled Marc-Andre Fleury when he was with the Chicago Blackhawks.
That is true.
So there's a little bit of hope there. Okay,
but here's your one-off word. He was on the Chicago Blackhawks, the team who can't score even when there isn't a good goalie on the other side. So
that's true.
Whatever.
That's very true. Okay, for my Eastern Conference, I believe, Chris, you and I have the same one, correct?
Florida, Carolina.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to go first?
Yep, I'm gonna give it to Carolina. Carolina is gonna be a grind. Carolina's gonna forecheck Florida to death. They're gonna beat them down. They're gonna frustrate their best players, and they're gonna finally grind them down in 7 games, and they're gonna beat Florida Panthers, and they're gonna go to the Stanley Cup Finals.
For me, I'm going with Carolina as well, and that was a change because I think I had Florida making it to the Stanley Cup final. But Carolina is just a more balanced team. And the only thing that I'm a little hesitant to pick Carolina over Florida is in goaltending. And I think this is the one time I'm going against goaltending, just because Carolina plays that crazy style that just wears you down. And I just think over a 7-game series that Florida just won't be able to match up to it. It's also not fair. It's not Florida's time yet. This is the first year that they've been relevant. They've had a decent team, but they've like last year they had a great team. They just had to play Tampa Bay in the first round. But this year is the first time that they've really had an excellent team, and they just haven't learned how to lose yet. So this is where I throw my my ideology about the playoffs here, and I think Carolina wins. So, James, I
have Carolina and Tampa Bay in the conference finals.
You don't.
What a good conference finals.
It is. It's such a good conference finals.
Don't do it.
Tampa Bay is gonna win it.
Screw you.
It's gonna be Tampa Bay versus Minnesota in the finals. It's gonna be Fleury versus Vasilevskiy. That's gonna be freaking amazing, dude. That's what I was like. I remember I like mentioned this in passing to Ryan. I think I don't know if it was on air or after a show or something. But like
after the show,
I said, wouldn't it be cool if Flower and Andre Vasilevskiy fought each other in the Stanley Cup Finals? And then I looked at the bracket and I was like, that could really happen. And that's what I went with. So it's a little bit of wishful thinking on my part to want those to play against each other. But also I really feel like that can happen. And I don't know. Just a reason for Carolina not beating Tampa Bay, because really Carolina is an absolutely spectacular team. I'm not betting against a 2-time Stanley Cup champion right now.
That's fair.
Especially not when they make it that close.
I just would hate having both those teams having good season. I want both those teams to be sad.
All right, so let's review our Stanley Cup Finals teams. For me, it's Minnesota and Carolina. James, who is yours?
Minnesota and Tampa Bay.
And then Christian?
Carolina versus Colorado.
So we all have 3 different Stanley.
Wow.
Yeah, we
I was not expecting that, honestly.
Well, I mean, it's that's what's fun about these prediction videos. You can be so wrong.
Well, one of us is gonna be.
Yeah, one of us is gonna be really, or all 3 of us may be really wrong.
I don't like that idea.
Yeah, I know. Okay, who would like to go first for the Stanley Cup final?
I'm going first.
Okay.
Carolina's going to win the Stanley Cup. They're finally going to do it. This is a team that can really knock down Colorado and keep their offense in check. They're going to do it in 6 games. It's going to be glorious. The Jerks are going to take a cup home.
James?
So with Minnesota Wild and Tampa Bay Lightning, I put Minnesota Wild.
Okay. At least
Minnesota
he did that.
Wild. You know why I did it?
Why?
Because Corey Perry is on the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's a curse, man. That is a curse. That is a curse. Okay, they're gonna lose in 7. Minnesota wins in 7 games.
So he's gonna be known forever as the anti-Patrick Maroon.
Third time,
3-time runner-up.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
It's going to be amazing.
I would honestly rather lose in the conference final than go to the Stanley Cup final and lose for the 3rd time in a row.
Yeah.
With your 3rd different team.
I want that storyline so bad.
Okay, but anyway, so for mine, you guys, I've got Minnesota and Carolina. Drum roll. Carolina's gonna be the Stanley Cup champions, in my opinion.
Boom.
And again, it's just gonna be. I think it's gonna be too much for Minnesota in general to handle. I think Fleury is gonna be exhausted at this point because he's had to go through St. Louis, Colorado, and Calgary in order to get to the Stanley Cup final, and I think he's finally just not gonna be able to do it. And now here's my another side to this. So there has only been a couple of times in NHL history that the Conn Smythe has gone to a player on the losing team. And I think that Marc-Andre Fleury is going to pull a J.S. Jaguar when Anaheim lost in the Stanley Cup final. And I think that Marc-Andre Fleury will get the Conn Smythe in the Stanley Cup final, in my opinion. So that's what I think.
That would be lame. I think that's lame.
But I don't know.
Not very valuable if he lost. I mean, I don't know about you, man. But
I think he's going to play out of his mind, and he's going to play the best that he can. But I think Carolina is just going to be too much for him. I really think it's just going to be too much for him. So, all right. So just to review, our Stanley Cup champion for me is Carolina. Chris says the same thing. He thinks it's going to be Carolina. And James, for some reason, says Minnesota Wild, which I don't know how we got to this point, but okay.
One point of that I just wanted to point out, just because it's quick passing. In my bracket, Minnesota plays Dallas in the conference finals. So I really feel like that's an easy win for Minnesota. They'll be well rested going into the Stanley Cup finals, in my opinion. That's the only reason why.
Yep.
Well, thank you for listening to the longest podcast we've done probably all year.
It's been a while. We haven't done one like this in a long time. So, all right, guys. Well, we are going to go ahead and cut it off here tonight. Playoffs start tomorrow. Stars do not play until Tuesday. So I feel bad for the American Airlines Center staff. I mean, with the Mavs games going on and with the Stars games going on, it's just back to back. It's like a full week of them just switching back from ice to wood. So good luck to them.
And guess what time the Stars play on Tuesday? Our favorite time.
9:30?
Almost 9 p.m.
That's my favorite time.
Thanks so much, Calgary. Appreciate it.
Well, we should really be saying thanks, Nashville, for losing the game. Yeah, for losing the game.
I mean, we thought that we gave it to Nashville when we lost to the same team.
We did the best we
could. Both teams are just too polite. They don't want the easier route. Either of them.
Random thought for tonight. Arizona played 2 games, right, against 2 wild card teams. The first game they were down 3-0. The second game they were down 4-0. And Arizona was just like, here, hold my beer. We can do worse. And I don't get it. They were getting shut out. And they came back and won both games. So I don't know.
The crazier thing for me was that the Sabres were winning 4-0 after the first 7 minutes of the game. Mm-hmm. It was 7 minutes into the game. They had 4 goals.
Oh my goodness. Arizona. It's just stupid.
How do both teams do that in the most critical point of the whole season, man?
I don't know.
How does that happen?
Galaxy brain.
I didn't get to rant about that, so that's why I ranted about it. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, it's after midnight here in the Central Time Zone, so we're going to cut it off here. Thank you guys for tuning in here for tonight. And or if you're listening on the podcast side, listening the next morning, we appreciate it. Please go and use the promo code THPN the next time you go and use DraftKings. DraftKings is really starting to ramp up their stuff for the NHL playoffs. There's going to be some new stuff exciting going on there. Also go and check out sarcasticmarkshop.com for all of the phase 1 of our new merch stuff. We'd appreciate it if you'd go and support us that way. That's the best way you can support us and what we do here. And then also, as always, if you'd leave a review wherever you're listening here, whether that be here on YouTube or whether you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, we'd appreciate that. And I think that's it. You can follow us all on social media as well. We're all over social media too. So anything else, guys?
Check us out Tuesday night.
Yep, Tuesday night, 9:00.
See you then.
So along with Chris and James, I'm Ryan. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Hope you guys have a good, fantastic evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening. Bye.